Alrighty, good morning everyone. It is Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021, and we're going to get started with our pre-market analysis for the S&P 500 futures market. I do want to point out again just how well these levels have been working that we plot on the chart. We had one of our members yesterday ask about some of these important levels that we mark. And really, I should keep this secret, especially because I'm broadcasting this onto YouTube for free. But these levels have been absolutely amazing. This level in particular, 42.15.50, as you can see, we had this huge bull push yesterday, pushed right into 15.50, pretty much to the tick, pulled back, found resistance at it again. And then once we broke above it, we found some pretty nice support off of that area and got a bounce right into 42.25.50. Just by about less than a point, we broke through, and then we pulled back and then even came down and bounced pretty much right off 15.50 once again. Now this level right here was plotted on the chart on June 9th. So we're going on 2-3 weeks now, and it's still a relevant level coming into this market. Found really clear resistance in the overnight session here, and just it blows me away how well they work. On top of that, you can see this blue line up here. We plotted this all the way back on June 17th, and that has become really great resistance here in the pre-market, and was even relevant, if I recall correctly, on the push up. Yeah, so we had this push up, we got through 15.50, we pushed right into that 21.50 level, and then sold off. So just amazing how well these levels have been working. So I do like to point it out because I am proud of how well these levels have been working. So let's jump to our ultra high time frames here. And looking at the 3-month, we did have that huge recovery yesterday. A little bit I was not expecting it. So a little bit out of the ordinary for what I would expect. We did recover. So this candle is now does not look as bearish as it did when we looked at it yesterday. And hopefully we do go ahead and continue to push and break that all-time high. But things don't look as bearish right now on the 3-month after that push. Pretty much the same thing on the monthly. We had the recovery yesterday, and things look pretty strong here. Again, no indications from a divergence perspective of exhaustion in the current push. And then our weekly, remember, we had the really bearish indication from the candle that closed for last week. That was helping our bearish case yesterday. And then we had that huge push. So right now, just kind of looking at where we are, there's really no clear indications on the weekly here, both from a divergent perspective and from a levels or a candlestick perspective. Really nothing to mention here outside of the fact that if we continue to push and break that high around 58.25, we will have a really strong bullish engulfing weekly candle here, which could lead to a continuation higher. So let's jump down to our daily here and take a look. So as you can see, here's this bullish, what I consider a bullish engulfing candle. This is essentially just one tick below the high of the previous candle, and you can see this huge recovery after that sell-off. So here we are. We broke the highs of the previous the last 3 daily candles. And so things are actually looking strong. Remember yesterday we talked about the bullish case that could be made off of the overnight low at 26.75. At least I think 26.75 was that overnight low. Let's see what time that was. Yeah, so yeah, in the overnight. So we did have a pretty clear bullish case there off of the low. And sure enough, we did get the reaction. We just did not have necessarily a strong bullish case on other time frames, which is why I was surprised at how strong of a push we got. But like I said in the pre-market yesterday, anything can happen. And so we did get this really strong retrace of Friday's bearish price action. Currently, right now, outside of that one bullish indication we had off the low, we don't necessarily have anything to read out of the current candle. And of course, we do have all day for this to develop. So right now we do have a bullish case off of the previous daily low on the daily. And from the 4-hour perspective, remember we talked about how we had a very bullish candlestick here at the lows, but we didn't necessarily have the bullish divergence indication. And then when we came into the open yesterday, we were showing what the potential for a bearish divergence. And so what we said was if we could stay below 77.50, we were going to hold this bearish indication that we saw not only here on the 4-hour, but also I believe on the hourly and even the 30-minute. But we did right around the open go ahead and break right through 77.50. And so then it was off to the races after that. And so this little bearish indication that we did have ended up being negated by the time the candle closed that morning. Like I said, we have to monitor that candle, and then when it closes, we'll get the official signal. So that did not end up holding and had the big push. And now we find ourselves up in this part of the chart here with an argument here for a bearish indication off of the overnight high. And currently there can be, similar to what we said yesterday morning, if you look at the current candle, we did push higher here, but the RVI has pushed lower. So this is something we're going to have to monitor as we get closer to 7 a.m. Because again, this story could change over the next about 45-50 minutes here. And I am also noticing that we do have a fairly bearish candle there up at the top, a huge wick to the upside, and then we did pull back here. But we'll just have to monitor this. I will mark this with a bullish indication off the low. And remember, that's only if we can stay above 42.0575 here. So if we break that, this whole story will change. Let's go over to our 60-minute, and same indications on the 60-minute, which is a good thing that we do have agreement here between those two time frames. We do have an actual closed candle at the lows here, giving us a bullish case. So we do have that bullish case, and that low happens to be 0575. So the same exact low that we're seeing on the 4-hour. So if we hold above 0575, we will have a bullish indication on the hourly and the 4-hour, which are both pretty strong time frames. Something else I'm also noticing here is that we have pushed to a lower high from the overnight high here. We did push to a lower high as of an hour ago, but the indicator did push a little bit higher as well. So we have another bearish indication off that high. Now remember, this could push all the way up to test the overnight high at 26.25, and we'd still have a bearish indication over here. So again, we're kind of building some conditions here for how we want to view the market this morning. If we can hold 0575, that would be more of a bullish case. If we can't hold below 26.25, then if we hold below 26.25, we'll have a bearish case. Just looking at kind of the overall leg here, and we definitely have some decent confluence here as far as retracements go for the current leg. So if we look at this whole push up from the previous daily low, we do have that 50% lining up right over here where we have all the previous resistance in the market, right around 76 to 78 here. And then the bottom ends of these wicks brings us right back to that 61.8 retracement level. So I do like the fact that that stuff is lining up there. And then of course, if we do continue to sell off here, we have our prediction points right in this general area where we have some more confluence with price action. So the 60-minute, nice and bearish off the highs with a small bullish indication when we had that pullback in the pre-market this morning. Let's go over to our intermediate time frames, see what's going on over there. Now there's something that is kind of interesting here. I had this triangle from last week, and look, I'm not saying that this is part of my strategy or anything, but just interesting that I had drawn that and I forgot to erase it. And then this morning, right off that top end of the trend line is where we found resistance. Like, it wasn't exactly to the tick, but within a few ticks of that trend line, we actually found resistance. Just an interesting observation. So let's take a look over here. Again, we have the same indication that we had on the hourly and the 4 hour, somewhat of a bullish case off of that low. And then we do have the bearish case agreeing with the 60-minute off of the most recent high that we made in the market, right around 42.22. So these are just some minor things to keep in mind here. We didn't necessarily have a nice clear bearish divergence off the overnight high from the 30-minute perspective, but we do have it now off of 42.22. What else can we say right now? We do almost have kind of a similar situation here. If you guys remember when we were talking about the 4 hour, you have this slight little push up and somewhat of a slight push down. So we have a divergence going on here. Remember, this candle has 13 more minutes to develop, but if we don't go below that 11.25 on this shorter time frame, we will have somewhat of a bullish case, assuming that signal stays like that. Because remember, when this candle closes, that signal could potentially push up, and then we won't have the indication. So we don't want to read too much into that right now, especially because we have, at the open, this will actually officially close. But we do have a bearish case off the high, like we do on the 60-minute and the 4 hour, and a bullish case off of that low. Again, the number there was 0575. So we're going to want to watch 0575 and the overnight high at 26.25 here. That's going to help us with our bias this morning. And finally, on the 10-minute here, we can just zoom into the local area. Looking off of the overnight low, I'm not necessarily seeing much of an agreement down here. Don't have a strong bullish indication off the lows here. And then off of the overnight high did not have a strong bearish case over here, in my opinion. And over here, don't necessarily see a strong bearish case, again, from a divergence perspective. If you look at the candlesticks here, you can see a huge wick on those 3 candles there, and then we had the sell-off. So somewhat bearish up here just from a candlestick perspective. You can see a lot of tries to push, and then the bears came in and slapped it back down. And off of the most recent pullback down to 11.25, where we did have somewhat of a case to be made for some type of bullishness here on the 30-minute, we don't necessarily have agreement. So not a huge confluence this morning of signals. If I could just wrap things up here, because it was a little bit wordy. If we look at the ultra high time frames, we don't have any clear signs of exhaustion. And now that we have the recovery from Friday's sell-off, these ultra high time frames don't necessarily have as much of a bearish look to them as they did yesterday morning. Our weekly still has that really strong bearish indication off the all-time high, and now you can see we're starting to recover, so we'll have to watch that there. When we get to our daily, we do have a nice clear bullish indication off of the overnight low. The 4 hour did have a really nice reversal candle down at the overnight low, but now we're starting to show some bearishness off of the overnight high, and that we saw agreement on our hourly here. And then when we go to our 30-minute, I'll bring it up really quickly here. We did have agreement of the bearishness off the highs in the pre-market here. And then some very bearish looking candlesticks on the 10-minute. So remember, we have some conditions this morning. Staying below 22 is going to be pretty bearish, and then ultimately staying below that 26 quarter is going to hold the bearish indications we saw on the 4-hour and the hourly. And then holding, if we cannot hold above 0575, any of those minor bullish indications over here will be negated. So we have some guidelines, some conditions for a bias this morning. We don't have a really clear picture like we do on some mornings. And so we're going to have to kind of take this with the conditions of 22.0575 below us, and then obviously the overnight high right around 26.50. And again, just want to point out we did have 25.50 on the charts here for, let's see, since June 8th. That's been on there and was really pretty clean resistance in the overnight here. So that's where we stand for the open.